In this episode of the podcast, we are going to talk about databases. Now, thanks to databases, you are able to do any complicated thing on any of your devices. You are able to do any complicated thing on a platform. So when I come here to Google, when I go to Facebook to do anything, when I have Instagram open, and I can instantaneously get essentially gigabytes worth of useless pictures served to me instantaneously. The only reason that all of these things can happen is because we can leverage databases. So how do we know that we are actually appreciating the the raw power that a database can give us? Before we even worry about what a database is, let's just look at one of our I'm going to call this a typical interaction, right? So when you signed up initially for Facebook, so this here is our beautiful, wonderful rockvalleycollege.edu Facebook page, just in case they're listening. When you signed up for a Facebook page, tell me if you remember this particular interaction happening. You would come through to Facebook and you would say, create a new account. You would go ahead and, do can I call it the ordinary account creation stuff? You are going to put in a first name. You are going to put in a last name. You are going to do, you're going to get a handle. So whatever your at Facebook name is going to be, you're going to provide a password, etc. When you were done saying yes to that form, you would have essentially gotten a screen, and that screen would have said, thank you for your interest in Facebook. Due to the overwhelming sheer number of new applicants, your account will be created in 8 to 10 weeks. And then you would have waited patiently, right? So dooby-dooby-doo, and you're twiddling your thumbs, and you are waiting for 8 to 10 weeks for that email from Facebook to say that, hey, congratulations, we've finally gotten around to creating your account, and now you can finally log in. And then that experience is going to keep continuing on. If we didn't have databases, excuse me, when you go through and post a picture, now that operation has to take time. Somebody would actually have to go through and link. Okay, here is the rockvalleycollege.edu Facebook page, or here is Adam Senatore's. I just picked one at random. Here is Adam Senatore's Instagram page, and now we have to create a new, one particular row so that this particular image or this particular image or whatever particular image can actually be displayed there. Now, of course, this is not what happens, right? It doesn't happen that when you come here to a Google search and you put in RVC, because again, they may be listening. When you put in RVC, it doesn't take weeks for that answer to come back to you. It takes a fraction of a second for that answer to come back to you. And really, that's all because we have databases populating these things in the background. And every request we make, so every time I make a request for Rock Valley College, that is instantaneously served back to me. Anytime I make a request for anything on Instagram, even just to load a page, all of these potentially gigabytes worth of data are made available to me instantaneously, and that's because of the database. How is it we might think about a database just in terms that are tangible, in terms that are similar to things that we've seen already? Well, actually, Excel turns out to be a pretty good analog for the basics of what a database can do. So in any blank workbook, if I was to create one, this is familiar to all of us, right? So what we have here are ranges of data. So we would have on the top rows, here, we would have the titles of our data, right? So we would have, name, address, phone number, social security number, e-number, things like that for a Rock Valley College student, right? And then down the data, down this way, we would have individual students' last names, right? We would have individual students' phone numbers. We would have individual students' addresses, social security numbers. We would have individual e-numbers. And that would represent one table's worth of data, right? We would have a student last name table. We would have a student first name table. We would have a student e-number table, etc., etc. And for each new workbook, or worksheet rather, that I add to the workbook, we can add a little bit of complexity there, right? So we could have, current students versus former students versus students who are signed up but who are not attending. We could have, lots of different data items that way. And what we're not able to do in a spreadsheet here, so, there's no real great way for us in a spreadsheet to combine data from one spreadsheet to another that's going to automatically update. Now, for those of you who are super duper comfortable with Excel, I am squinting away the sheer truth that, yeah, there are ways to do this, but if you think about it, the problem with an Excel spreadsheet doing that is we can only have one or two, maximum two users in any Excel spreadsheet at any time before we're, really in trouble for how many users we have hooked up. Here at Facebook, we have, or Instagram, we have hundreds of millions of users concurrently signed on, right? So here across the globe, we have hundreds of millions of people looking at pictures of, people in a field, or we are looking at pictures of, food or whatever else. Here at Google.com, we have hundreds of millions of people at any one time doing, Google-related service work, right? So they're on YouTube, they're here in search, they are using Gmail, etc. And the only way we can have that many people accessing all that data all at the same time, all making changes, and all not impacting somebody else, is because of a database. So the work you've been doing with Access is a good first look at what it is that we can do with a database. It allows you to create queries. A query is exactly what I do when I come to Google and I say search for RVC Eagle. That is a search query, just like you are doing in an Access database. And this, the Google homepage, is exactly the query report you'd be getting, but it's something that we have, finely tuned to make it look more presentable. This is something that actually you could vaguely do with Access if you had all of the tools that are available to Access. So Access is a good first stand-in for what you see happening here in Google. Google runs on a different database. It runs partially on what's called MySQL. SQL is pronounced SQL. So if you see that out there in the industries, it's SQL, not SQL for the most part. But it's a good first look at how this works. And really, search runs on databases. Facebook runs on databases. Instagram runs on databases. Your operating system, so Mac OS or iPad, so iOS, Android, Windows, Linux, whatever, all of those run because of databases.